gotta check my email and there it is, and I haven't given it any thought. That's not doing.
So, yeah, so I only had the time today to look at it, so that's all. Yeah, and I didn't really make any changes other than a suggestion on backyards. I just kind of.
Get with it. You got a lot to discuss, and she's here.
Mayor, the boxes are moved. Most everybody's happy.
Everybody?
Most everybody. So this is the thing. So you know how Paul had a heartache about having to buy his house? I drive by there. I go by there at least twice every day. Never seen a single person at the boxes.
No, just,
They walk to.
They either walk to them or they grab them real quick on their way. It's
Oh,
no
yeah,
big
yeah.
deal. So I doubt you'll hear anything.
That will be our gavel.
It's the only one you'll hear tonight.
I think we can start as they walk in. First, let's talk about the water wise thing. I wasn't here last time, and I saw your comments and some of the things we revised. Does we want to kind of lead with what your discussion was last week and how we got to
Well,
where we
and
did?
I made 3 suggestions to Ted and he sent out the revised version. I know 2 of the 3 were editorial. I can't even remember what the substantive one was. I think we're pretty close to where we need to be. We started with a little bit more ambition than we probably needed or should have.
Yeah.
So we backed out, philosophically, we backed down to say, okay, let's start a little bit more conservative. We can always add more rules and restrictions.
Does that still put you in line with the criteria for people to apply for flip the turf funds?
Yeah, that was not a debatable issue. I mean, getting rid of strips, that's,
So we will qualify with Weaver Basin.
Yeah, with what we have with, because they only have the percentages for front and side yard. That's their only criteria.
Okay.
So, yeah. So that's why I mentioned we should put something about backyards probably because people say, well, what about my backyard?
there, and I appreciate that because there's a noticeable void in any discussion about what goes on in the backyard in the current document.
I think part of the reason for that is that they're all about whether it's functional turf. Most backyards are pretty functional compared to front yards.
Well,
That's true.
Not everybody, but most.
that's true, but and here's my stance. If we're going to make a statement about be smart if you've got a garden in your backyard, which would always be in your backyard, maybe we ought to say something about be smart about how you manage the turf and the other parts of the other landscape in the backyard. And that's where I took off on your commission or your comment is that it seemed a little inconsistent to make a comment about a garden and not say anything about all the turf in the back. I'm not suggesting that we put restrictions on it other than a philosophical statement about
That's kind of what I
let's
put in,
be
which
good
is
stewards of the land kind
a
of thing.
suggestion just to,
Yeah.
kind of like we did with gardens, just
Yeah.
recommendation, just be water wise with your backyard landscaping. That's kind of all we want to put in that.
I've heard somebody say that they're gonna plant their garden in the parking strip.
I've seen people do it.
It's a good idea, as long as you don't get the pumpkins out of control.
Yeah, as
So
long as
in
that's
reading
quickly.
through this, you must have, because some of these did change. My hesitation still is that on the residential side is that year to get your landscaping in. That is not,
It was much worse before.
where?
I mean, at one time it was a 2-month window, you know?
Does Farr West have a standard for that?
No, we're picking this off there.
Oh, I was gonna say, because there is.
No.
So we did have discussion on that last week,
Okay, yeah,
Geneva,
what happened?
because you suggested 2 years, but we're concerned about seed blow-in from weeds in a yard that's unestablished into the neighbor's yard, causing problems that
For
way.
a year?
We want it, yeah,
A
a year's time frame. Most, North Ogden, I think, has the same.
There too.
Are they
It's
too?
all the surroundings are too, and I'm telling you, if anyone's built a house here, it's hard that first year to even think about getting your yard in.
Well, and I know a lot of the CCNRs, when you buy your lots, because ours was like that, you were required also
And
to have.
usually they're 2 years.
Ours was a year,
Yeah.
within 12 months of
I think
residency.
ours was too.
That is pushing.
I think ours
I
was
know
too.
that, but as a horticulturist,
I know.
avocation,
That's
I
the
will
only thing I'm gonna fight you on.
no, but I will say this, if you leave it a year fallow, You're gonna get a weed set in that thing that's gonna make it infinitely more difficult to
Oh,
seed in
yeah.
grass.
Oh, yeah.
So there's no advantage gain in waiting a year in
But I
terms of trying
challenge
to.
you to drive through any construction subdivision in our area, and I can guarantee that 50% of those homes do not have yards and they're living in them.
And because nobody's pushing them.
Well, yes.
So that's
Okay, so
a
here's the
that's a
flip
bad
to it too.
argument.
What's the penalty if you don't put your yard in? Who's going to monitor that? And then on top of that, who's gonna make me?
Well, it's easy to monitor, you just drive by.
Well,
I mean,
then
so
someone's pulling an occupancy permit, figuring out when they've moved in, and then someone needs to check a year from now.
Well, I think eventually it would fall under, once we get
The code enforcement.
And
And
that
then
would
what?
be, it's all self-reporting.
Well, no, and then what's the repercussions? So say I don't put my yard in and say, hey, guys, that's the last thing I can afford at this time, or wanna do at this time, or I'm moving in, it's the last thing I'm thinking about, what are you gonna do to me?
I think there's statute, there's code
What is
that follows that.
I don't think there's any penalties right now on the books for
Well, no,
that.
not right now, but I'm saying, what
Right.
is gonna be that penalty, because if
I know, we'd have
I'm a
to,
citizen, I'm gonna say, I really don't care, you wanna pay for my yard, you're gonna put it in.
Okay,
for the fencing,
your argument
Yeah, I
is,
know.
it's not adequate amount of time for a new occupant that's got 1,000 other things to worry about.
For
and costs and
50%, totally probably fine, and most people, a lot of people plan to put it in, but I'm just saying, 12 months is a tight,
Okay, so let me make the flip argument,
Okay.
counter argument.
Yeah.
The one that has lesser meat to it is a disservice to your neighbors that have to wait a year to look
Oh,
at
absolutely.
your dry spot. But the more important one is allowing it to go to weeds in any way, shape, or form.
but don't we have a weed ordinance?
Yeah, but
But they
that
don't.
weed
It's the
or.
same thing. When you wander around, you'll have to see tons of weeds in these.
Right,
When they
yards
enforce
and stuff.
it, it's not the puncture weed, low growing weeds.
No, it's like
the
my
for-
neighbor,
It's
I
the
live
forest,
It's-
you know,
it's
you're
the
talking about
ragweed.
forest stuff.
yes,
Fall stuff.
I'm talking about stuff that would catch on fire. and
So-
catch my house.
If you don't say that, then we ought to have something in there that says, okay, if you can't plant it or whatever, you've got to keep it weed free. Until it's
But
planted
we
to-
have that in our ordinance already.
Nah,
That we
It's-
need to be maintained every 6
but
months.
the argument is nuisance animal. It creates habitat for nuisance.
I'm
animals.
just thinking of down the road, not the expense, but the amount, it's kind of one of those things where you put it in place and who's gonna enforce that? Who's gonna pay attention to the fact I've got my permit, it's been a year, now I'm gonna go see if they put their law
But it gives the city some.
Recourse if we want to.
recompense to-
in. Well, yes,
This
but
is how
why
this is
12
how it
months?
has worked over the last many years. Is for the most part, nobody goes around with the timer or a
That's my
calendar,
point.
okay? They don't do that, but that doesn't mean you don't have, this is when you need to have it put in.
Right,
What you do is, okay, if it's beyond that and it's, the rest of the neighbors are in and you're still slacking, it's like, you know what, you had a year, it's been 5, it's time to get that
well, and
puppy
that's
in.
my thing, if you're leaning on
But-
that point of, oh, okay, well, we'll
But-
figure it out 3 years down the road, why are we constraining them? 12 months is a challenge, I'm telling you.
It's a challenge, but a doable one. But on the other hand, if you give them 2 years, they'll take 3.
Yeah.
Right.
They're
But
gonna take double whatever you give
If you
them.
say
if you
2
guys
years,
are okay with them, then
I have a problem, another problem. If you say 2 years, you're almost giving them permission to
it'll
delay.
take 2 years.
indefinitely.
Here's
So
my-
I'm telling you to put them in, here's
Yeah,
what I
Here's
know
my
right
thought is if they didn't build a house, they'd be next to an empty lot, which was weeds anyway. And I've been told it takes 2 years for your yard to settle. So I don't want to rush in and just put grass everywhere just to have grass. I want to understand
2 years for the yard to settle.
for
landscaping.
after around your
That's for
foundation.
building. That's for.
now.
No, but like say you want to
Your
put,
yard to
say you want to
settle.
put a swim pool in there, like
That's
I
a-
don't.
That's a construction. We're talking about.
We're talking about
Well, no,
landscaping.
he's talking exactly right.
I'm
My
saying-
yard, my flower beds that I planted when I first moved have sun.
I'm saying, say I want to
Your
put a
house has to
swim
settle when you
pool.
build.
Say I want to put a swim pool. I have a friend that put a swim pool in first year that he built. And everything settled and
Oh,
it
crap.
cracked and he had to take him to court and had to redo the swim pool.
I have no
This is the
problem with
perfect
structure.
example right now, because you're building, you're in the situation I was a couple years ago, where I had to time my landscaping just because it's the same as fences, you don't know who's moving in next to you, so maybe you hold off on the fence and wait 6 months because Maybe someone will move in there and wants to share the cost, or 12 months, if you've ever built a house, is not obtainable.
How long did it take, Geneva?
It's not.
When your flower bed, when
I did my own
your flower
sprinkler
bed
system,
settled,
PVC.
how long was
Piece
it?
by
Did you
piece.
notice
We put all of our
Wait,
sprinklers
I mean,
into and
6 months?
But that is right, 50% can probably do that.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
not, say you move in August.
But we're not talking about really enforcing this. We're talking about if they have a deadline, most of them are gonna beat it.
What if
There'll
we,
be a few that go beyond that, and if it
Well,
becomes a
that's
nuisance and
kind
their
of
neighbors
my
report
point.
them, then we'll go take action,
what if
so.
we split the difference and go a year and a half?
and you
That
do
doesn't make
have,
sense
I'm not-
because they're seeding in the middle of the winter.
Right,
That
and
doesn't-
I'm fine, if you guys wanna go 12 months, that's fine. It sounds like we're not going to enforce it anyway, so my point to that is, why are we sticking to 12 months if you're not really gonna?
Because the
why
same
do we
reason
have
why.
any rules?
That's if you talk to our city attorney, he will say more than 50% of the reason for putting something in ordinance is
I'm
a
good with
deterrent.
Right, I want it to be in there. I'm just saying, okay, we're sticking to 12 months, but we know that we're not gonna enforce it. So why are we being so strict on the 12 months?
Because you get the majority of the people that do abide by
And those
it.
people are already gonna put it in 12 months to begin with.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's an incentive for significant percentage.
It's more
I'm telling
incentive
you.
than it is a penalty, because
80% of those people are never gonna know that they have to put their yards in 12 months, because no one's gonna look at it.
They're not gonna look at the ordinance?
Right.
Another thought real quick is I moved in December. Probably the best time is April, May, not June or July when it starts getting hot.
You don't
Well,
see
you
it.
won't
And
be
so that
able
gives me
to.
4 months to, within that timeline, because
Well-
I'm not gonna be able to do it in
And it's the last
December.
thing you're thinking about, right?
Okay,
Yeah, right.
Okay, got a better idea.
Okay.
You give them one growing season to put it in.
I like that.
But
What's
what's
a
it,
growing season?
In other words, depending upon when they occupy, it could be the wrong half of the year.
Mhm.
So give them a full growing season, that's the spring and the fall to get it in, that year.
Well, he'd still be in the same situation.
So
Okay.
winter, I moved in winter, that would mean
No,
by
but
April, right? I would have to start putting my lawn in.
no, you could put it
You
in
could
the
pick-
fall.
You could put it in either the spring or the fall.
because you only got July
In
and
other words, the
August
front
is the only time
statement
you
is-
can't.
When I say growing season, I mean the front end and the back end of summer,
Okay.
because
To make sure you
nobody
have both.
wants to put it in July. That gives you,
better to put it in the fall.
well.
You can
that-
plant-
the
you can-
Jury's out on that one. but-
Okay, but you,
Yeah,
okay,
from the horticulturist.
but you can plant grass, from a farmer's standpoint, you can plant grass before the snow flies. And I guarantee that you will have grass growing in the spring.
Right, oh yeah, it's a cool season grass.
No,
It's
it'll,
not-
what I'm saying is it'll plant it and let the snow fly and let the spring rain, everything will bring it up.
It's a nice slow soak all.
I'm just saying that, and I'm fine with the 12 months, but I'm just saying, we're all basically saying that it's not gonna be enforced, so why are we picking such a
Well,
tight?
I'm not-
Well, then why not do 2 years or 5 years or
I don't
whatever?
know about
But then
5
you
years,
get-
but I challenge you to look at
But I'm
all
just
the
saying,
cities surrounding. North Ogden is 2 years.
and that's fine.
If you give
But I
them,
think-
if you give them both the spring and the fall after occupancy to put it in, that to me is reasonable.
And there's also other circumstances which could delay things, like, for instance, right now, kind of on your side of things, they're recommending nobody put in anything for a while, even if it's the rule.
Well, even
To
last
delay
fall,
plantings at all.
last fall, I went to go get my trees to plant and where I needed them, like 15 of them. I couldn't get them last fall. I
So-
had to wait until they cut them this spring. And say I had moved in July of last year. Or
I
maybe-
think that's,
maybe I
you
moved
can
in
always
March.
change whatever's in your beds or your.
No, but I'm just
plant, like-
saying, you can't always get the same material, maybe sod isn't available in the same aspects they were, now we're having a harder time getting sod, maybe all of a sudden sod raises up and the suppliers are different. So I'm just saying, there are situations now more
Maybe
than
we
ever
could
that we're
put,
coming against.
Like one growing season. I'd have like an asterisk on it because I feel like too, a lot of these people are putting in yards and then we're basically in a drought. I don't know if they're
Okay,
gonna live.
that's
And then
easy
we're
to
telling
cover.
them to hold their
Unless
pepper.
constrained by.
Unless
water
constrained
restrictions.
by-
All you have to say is unless constrained by water restrictions, and then just don't even put a time after that.
That'll even help with some of this other water-wise
Yeah,
stuff.
so I
There you
would,
go.
That's a good
unless
idea.
constrained by water restrictions.
I'm probably fine with that, honestly, I'm not trying to be hard about this subject, I just think we're choosing a date that we're really not gonna follow up with either.
And no teeth.
And you're making it so tight, it's kind of, that's my problem with it is he
It
is
is
in this
tight.
situation right now.
That's like one of my things that I'm worried about, but that's not my top because there's a drought right now, so I'm figuring like
You're trying to get
maintain
everything else.
it and then,
You see, it's only July and August that you can't put in landscaping.
Well, we're talking about turf. You can put in shrubs. anytime
Well,
you
yeah,
want.
yeah, that's
Plant
right.
bed.
That's what I meant. That's what I meant.
but yeah, I agree. I have neighbors right now that are asking me, do you wanna go in on a fence? And then I have a house being built right here, not occupied, so it's like, this is the longest area of my whole fencing.
I'm not making it difficult. We can leave it there. I'm fine. I'm just saying, it's one of those things we always come against, oh, it's in our ordinance, but we don't enforce it.
Well, I'm not, I think, I'm not using that as our fallback, that, well, it doesn't mean anything because we don't enforce it, because we have a ordinance enforcement officer now. So things could happen in the future. I do think if you put something, unless constrained by water conservation issues or whatever, or some extenuating circumstance, something to that effect, you basically said, we want you to do it, but they're,
We'll be reasonable.
Yeah. I
We'll
think
be
that's what needs
reasonable
to be in
in
it.
circumstances like this year, or you know what I mean? I agree. I agree with that, but
I think we 12 months and add a little sentence about water conservation rules that may restrict you or possibly other extenuating
yeah,
circumstances.
and that's exactly what I put.
Yeah.
So if they have a financial hardship and they come and make their case,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
But I would rather go that route than
I
give
feel okay about
everybody
that.
license to wait till the second year before they even think about it.
I'm fine with that.
An extension can be requested or something.
So we got that on our
Yeah,
list
there you go.
today, so do we just table it and get it hammered out, the exact language?
I have a lot of people.
Public hearing,
The
we
public
need that
hearing-
before it's perfect.
The public hearing is gonna be next time, and we can have it put to bed by next time, pretty much.
Oh, yeah, we
so.
can make these changes.
And we cannot.
You want me to take it?
Strip until this gets passed, right? Cause
Right.
I have lots of people asking.
You guys want me
and
to
I
add a
say,
blurb in
we're
the
waiting on this ordinance.
both
to
elements.
get Pushed
Yeah.
through.
backyard too? Should we talk about backyard real quick? We'll do both that. We'll do to stay 12 months, but water wise, if there's water restrictions or extenuating circumstances, they can go longer. And then,
And
I
we'll
think-
leave that longer, actually, I would leave it open-ended, I would just say, you should put it in within a year unless there are water restrictions or extenuating
extenuating
circumstances.
circumstances, leave
Approved
it.
by the city.
Approved by the city, so they have to come in here and talk to
I
the
like
city.
that.
Yep. And then, I still think we need to blurb about backyards in there.
What was it on the backyards again?
Nothing. It's unrestricted on the backyard. You can do whatever
Yeah.
you want in the
You
backyard.
know, flood
That's what we're
irrigate.
putting in there?
No, right now,
Oh,
there's nothing in there regarding backyards. The Weber Conservation District just said 35% of landscapable area of your front and side yards
Well,
can be
and,
turf.
and there's a lot of CCNRs and even by code and all that, nobody has to put it in backyard if they don't want to
Yeah.
ever.
So we're just saying, I just think that a
You
little
wanna put
blurb
that
that
as
says we
part
need
of
to,
C?
what's that?
You wanna put it in the same paragraph with the garden? Since you're talking about the backyard,
Maybe, yeah.
backyard turf is blah, blah.
Maybe not even just turf. I just, on the sentence I emailed out today, it was just
Copy
be water,
Your water wise?
yeah, be, kind of considerate of the, water situation and putting in your backyard.
Be mindful of all of this as you go.
So does that mean that if we do the 12 months, is that only your front yard?
No,
the whole thing?
It's the
But
whole
you
thing?
said
'Cause if there's
grass,
no-
it doesn't matter,
If
right?
there's no
Yeah, I think
rules on what to put in your backyard.
nobody has to put a backyard in as long as it's behind a fence and you can't see it.
Unless the weeds grow through the neighbor's fence.
Yeah,
Yeah, you guys should all take a field trip.
well, you still have to
Yeah.
take care of your notches.
yes, yes.
Go trip to my
You should take a
neighbor's
field trip
back.
to my house and see the guy that lives next to me. I hope he's not listening to this meeting right now. Just
So I
take
put-
To the Golden Eagle subdivision.
And prepare me for the show.
Five houses down. I'm the sixth house in.
See,
It's a complete weed patch.
So the sentence on backyards that I put in the email I sent out earlier was just, there are no restrictions in backyards. We encourage prudence and water conservation when planting backyard landscapes. That's it. Just leave it simple.
You know, and then they can.
Just like think about, you know, like.
I like it because it creates, there's something besides this vegetable garden we're discussing back
And we're not requiring anyone to rip out their
No,
park strip, I mean,
No.
right?
no.
No,
It's not
it's not
retroactive.
retroactive. No, I wouldn't want to get into that.
No, you wouldn't, because I wouldn't be tearing mine out.
Well, no, you'd have so much, well,
Oh, yeah,
we'd be hearing grandfathered in so many times.
right.
We had a neighbor went for 2 years, he didn't do his yard.
Yeah.
And then the weeds died, the wind would blow, they end up in my yard. I put them in my lawnmower trailer, took them back over to his yard.
But I have a hard time with that because
It
a
is.
good system
I
of
know.
fertilization and person taking care of your lawn, the guy that lives next to me has the most weeds I've ever seen in my life, and not a single one is in my yard.
This guy hadn't even put a yard in, he's there for,
Well, yeah, this
3
guy
years,
has
yeah.
he's put a yard in technically, but
Yeah.
go drive by it, I challenge you to go drive by
it'd be interesting, we'll,
it. Okay, anyways, let's
Okay,
move, so we
next
have the changes for that.
Yeah.
We can,
Okay.
are you gonna revise that and then will you send it out to us? And then
Yeah.
I'll let Ted know that that's the revisions that we're doing tomorrow.
Yeah.
I think
And
it looks
you're,
good.
we need to mention that to the public. that You did say it was on the agenda, right?
We
But
need to
just set it
do we need to
up.
mention to
Oh,
the
to set a
public?
public
hearing.
Yeah, because this hasn't been released, public's never seen it, so, yeah, we're
No,
okay.
just that. Okay, I'm gonna let you run with the general plan, because Steve's not here either, so I don't know really what we're going on
So
about this.
just last week at our city council meeting, we asked what the status was on, you know, where we're at with things with the general plan update. And, I know you guys are through with the videos and stuff. And I think they're a really good asset, but I think we need to have, this is a really important part of our government and of our city, and we need to have a really strong outreach and engagement plan to more than just a public, we did our check the box public hearing. We need to give our residents an opportunity to know what this is about, what's in it, have a say, and then make updates based on that and report back to them. So I'd ask for some time today to kind of go over kind of what our expectations were, and kind of like a timeline, and how, you know, I put some thoughts to paper on how we could have a, you know, kind of a coordinated approach to outreach on this and getting the word out, and then kind of lay out a timeline for final codification and implementation of this. So just questions for you guys before I kind of jump in, and it kind of gives me an idea of where we're headed with things. Before we started actually drafting the updates, did we do any like community visioning, or did we do any like solicit public input before we started the updates?
We were staring at a deadline that was passed. We have an obligation to make a report each year on not affordable housing, moderate income housing, gotta get my terminology correct. And so that kind of pushed us in that direction, because that's a piece of the general plan. But we are mandated to review it every 2 years and make major changes. How often? Every
Every
4
5.
4 or 5. So we're due for an overhaul. And that, in my view, is what drove our decision. This has been a slow process because we're not only tweaking it, we're actually rewriting it and eliminating a lot of verbiage. And
When was the last time we did an open house? 3 years ago?
2016.
oh, it's been a while.
2016?
Oh, yeah,
That was the one that we did over here? I didn't join till 17, and we did one.
Exactly.
Well, no, but we did one.
No, not a public hearing, or I mean, an open house,
The one that was in the gym over there?
2016, December.
Maybe it was December.
It was.
It's been years and years.
We've always had a hard time with actually how to get people's input, getting a response from them, and implementing it that way.
And I'd like to make a comment that relates to what you said. Our open house, the past open house was quite focused oriented. What do you think about a cemetery? What do you think about active transportation? You remember some of the other, but it wasn't, here's the general plan, and I think most of the public has no idea how we use the general plan. I'd like to have a lot of that. What happens to the general plan? How does it play into decisions that we make? Or is it just a nice brochure that we hand out to anybody that wants to know about Far West? No, it's basically our marching orders. Tonight's agenda is a good example of that, for how we make what we, particularly when we go into any rezoning and so forth. And I don't think we've made any attempt to really help the public understand this general plan is more than just a nice document.
So I watched the last planning commission, and one of the questions that I had, but I wasn't here, and Steve's not here, is he seemed to want questions and survey questions specific to each tiny area.
To each,
And I thought that that's way too much input, that they are only getting a sliver of the information. And I was more sending ideas of, is this engaging you? Is this something you would like to see? Are you willing to come? And that's what I was kind of thinking, because we need to drive them to come out to a thing so then they can
So they will.
participate.
I think both are very important.
Okay, and then what, we need to kind of determine if we're asking the public to give input on this general plan update, what is our, as a planning commission, as a city council, as city bodies, what is our, are we willing to implement those changes that the public was making? Because that will affect how, or is this just saying, we're updating the general plan, let us know what you think? You kind of have different levels of involvement. You can go anywhere from advise to collaborate, and we need to kind of determine where we fall within that spectrum.
Well, we need to take it all into consideration. I mean, because maybe they're thinking outside the box more than we are. And I mean, sometimes people might come up with ideas that seem unattainable for us, and so we have to take those in, just kind of, but I think that we ought to take that into consideration and go from there. And tweak it, maybe.
I'm not gonna point fingers at anybody, but there has been a general attitude of, we've made up our mind, but we'll let you talk. But we're not gonna really change our mind.
Which is.
I'm not endorsing that. I'm
And
saying
that's
there
what-
is a backdrop of
Yes,
that.
and that's what I look to overcome with this, and I want this to be that's why I think this is so important, and it's a totally different effort, and it should be, there should be some responsibility on our behalf to report back to the public and say, we heard you, and here's how we made these changes.
I have a visual aid of something that we've used recently. So this is something we had for when we got feedback during the Freedom Festival for active transportation. People came up, they put stickers on, they talked about it, they pointed at it, going, I want one here, I want that. And that's the kind of engagement we had with the general plan and open houses in the past, where we had a nice big map and people were like, and we wrote those things down, and that's how the current map was actually created, was through people came in and they used stickies or whatever in order to get that going.
And then based on what we've seen,
Could I just follow up on that? So you solicit public input, and that ranges from the most brilliant idea known to man to where is this person, which planet does this person live on? Okay. And let's say that took place in an open house. And then we go into our closed session, as it were, and make decisions, and then that public feels like they never listened to me, and they really don't know, we considered what you said,
Here's why.
and here's the reason why we didn't do it. One thing we have not done, which was be very time consuming, is to take each suggestion and give a rationale why we did not follow.
you're gonna want this.
Well,
No, but that's what
No, I know.
an unsatiated public would want that.
I'd agree that we need a goal and we need the public to understand what's going on, but this isn't like a wish list, right? You can't just say, I want a grocery store here and I want this, here, and I want, you know what I mean?
You can say all of those
Yeah.
things,
But they need to
That
understand
does
that we're
come
coming
into the,
for
They
a
need to understand
overall
why we
plan.
why we didn't put grocery store.
Yeah.
And that's where the general plan doesn't explain our rationale for all the discarded suggestions.
And, so kind of in my thought process and kind of laying this all out based on where we're at now, I kind of laid out like a time frame for this, and Ken and I kind of workshop this back and forth. I think, right, May is a great time to launch kind of the public facing portion of the general plan update. So we use those videos, as, you know, are out, like kind of the visual for that. We go out and we do that. This month is kind of that education part of the plan. So we go out and we say, you know, why do we have a general plan? What does it serve us? What does it serve us for? And why is it important that you're involved? And then we, so we use May as that time frame. I'd like to have the mayor do, you know, kind of an introduction, you know, whether it's a Facebook Live or something, saying, you know, hey, we're updating the general plan. Here's the progress that we've made so far. Watch our Facebook, watch, you know, the website for weekly updates, and then week by week we kind of push out those videos along with some questions to spur discussion about it. June, we would like to do kind of like our first open house, and we use that as saying, okay, this is a jumping off point, and we do something, you know, in here or in the gym, and we have, you know, we invite them and to have discussions about what's been proposed.
I actually talked to Ted a little bit about this. We're thinking in here and in the senior center, because we could actually use these screens to actually show your videos and anything, you know,
Yeah.
those kinds of, so people can go up to one of these screens and somebody can be,
We had posters, but we would do it.
yeah, and it was very echoey. I don't think the gym is a good place for an open house.
No, but you're talking more about the concept where.
Well, no, but there's something from after, well, never mind, after 2016.
I have vague memories of it. It wasn't, the one he's talking about where he did pie charts and everything for the results.
Ours, we did something different.
It
Anyway,
wasn't,
sorry, keep going.
So then in order to combat that, like, it's the same old cast of characters, and people don't wanna come, people don't wanna get involved. We have Freedom Festival coming up. Let's set up a booth at Freedom Festival that's specific to the general plan. We have the maps up, we have places, we're meeting the public where they're at. They're gonna be there. We are gonna engage with a new audience that hasn't.
Enticing with prizes.
Yeah, and we have maps up and stickers and things that they can, and that's kind of that community visioning portion of.
and we've done that. We were there and Ted was manning something. What was it?
He was doing
It
a,
was the general plan. Here's the old one, here's the new one,
Oh,
use some of our
someone
old maps.
but he was,
Ours was,
Breakfast.
the active transport, when I say ours, I'm all on the active transportation committee.
Yeah.
That was definitely interactive, you know.
And I think we missed that mark a lot, because we have a lot of good community events that
Yes.
a lot of people go to.
Yes.
And it's easy to do that. Like, I can picture at that rec center, like where that whiteboard is when you walk in, if we can spur, you know how many parents walk in and out of that rec
Right.
center every day? Spur something up there for them to start thinking when visit this or something like that, like just community areas that are easy to
Well,
start that.
another thing is we have some other tools, right? We have now the text line, and we have now the email line that we've
Yeah.
set up, that I don't know if we've really pushed very, like, we could set that up at the
I
booth.
still haven't
We
gotten
could put-
anything to even set it up.
Yeah.
What's up, this I didn't get a postcard, I didn't get it.
I didn't get a postcard, but I eventually just signed up.
well, I signed up, but I've never received a text or an email.
You've
So-
not received them? Cause
I don't
I
think-
have.
I
I
have not
really?
received anything.
I've only received.
But that's the
one
stuff that we gotta push
Oh,
out.
the-
that's
the whole
fine.
time.
I signed up, but I haven't seen anything yet.
I've only received like one or something.
During each of these different milestones, so the launch, during the open house, during the community, during the
Freedom
4th of July, we will have different, we'll have content specific to that we'll post on the website, on social, through our e-blast, and we say, okay, like, hey, you've still got time, we're gonna be at Freedom Festival, stop by the booth. And so we'll utilize those channels to get the word out about what we're doing at that certain phase, because it's silly not to.
But we need to get those channels also advertised a little better, I think, too, at the same time, because we know about it.
So we're paying for this system and nobody's using it.
No, we've used it a couple of times.
Once, I've got one.
One for the survey, the Christmas lights.
No, that came through Facebook or something.
Huh?
I didn't-
Well, so that was an example. We did use
do remember
Facebook
that one
and
because
email.
there was a
Might have been that,
question on it.
But I mean, it's been in place for like
A year.
almost a year and we got like
And I
one
still
or
haven't
two
gotten a
things.
notification to even sign up.
And it's hard to have engagement if it's 1 month and then you don't hear anything until 9 months later, and then you get a blurb and you're like, what is this? I completely
There's a lot of
forgot.
things- a lot of things the city's doing,
Yeah.
they can set out on that.
Yes, and we should.
And it's not because you go on Facebook and says the city's doing this and this and
No,
this.
because that's
do
not gonna get you gotta use all of the channels. 'Cause,
Yeah.
Well,
for instance, Lou's never gonna see a Facebook post.
That's
ever.
what I'm saying.
I'm
It's-
curious to see how many
but
people
I
signed
look
up
forward
for
to the
it.
email, the one that I did receive.
That's it.
That's what I'm saying. On Facebook, they've got all this stuff going on. And why can't that be emailed out on the,
Well, and you have to have some sensitivity that you're covering from
Hey, I can tell
high-tech
you-
people to
To Lou,
old people.
To Lou.
But we also talked in that joint session that.
And do you want to reach the
Like
whole
that,
audience?
I want
Yeah,
text
you
for
do.
emergency to the city. I don't want to receive a text that we're having a public hearing. I would block that number very fast.
No, it needs to
It needs to
But
have.
I'm
be something
saying-
of value.
I'm saying like the Easter egg hunt and the Freedom Festival and information like that. Or even if it just says Freedom Festival's coming up, look at the website for more information or whatever.
By the way,
It's just like,
Also, you have to be very careful about announcements because sometimes they're so vague, they're not even. For instance, if we are going to have a public hearing to discuss the general plan.
Right. like-
What does that mean?
But I think that's why you have to kind of.
If you said we're going to have a public hearing to discuss
A cemetery.
bringing high-rise apartments in Far West,
The whole thing.
then you would have.
They'll be
swimming
packed in here wall to wall.
Which is funny, I ran into a neighbor the other day and she goes, so when are they gonna build those apartments behind us? I said, you do know we didn't go, like, that wasn't actually.
You know,
ever
There's a
thing.
lot of this residual.
I had a neighbor ask me if they're starting to build because of all the piping on 2700, and I said, that's Pleasant View.
Right, that's true.
But he says, didn't that go through? I said, no, I never
Well,
went
but
through.
That reflects something though. It reflects citizens that are concerned that somehow aren't in the communication pipe or don't have access to it or don't know how. And their information, and we had this with the Papa George thing. You have no idea how many versions of that story went up and down Far West Drive. And
that's
some of them,
small.
and some of them were frightening. And that was their source of information, not from the city.
What was the gossip grapevine?
And that's why,
Yeah.
that's why I feel like this process of updating the general plan requires more than just, we put the videos out there and end of story. Like, it needs a concentrated campaign that includes education, that includes different avenues for people to get involved, different channels for pushing out this information. So it's not, so we are, because it's, you know, a guideline for our future, and, you know, it deserves to have as much input into it.
Well, this is kind of like a baseline, right? If we can get engagement now in the general plan, hopefully it shows more engagement within the community. We're doing our job, getting it out versus, yeah, versus if we just shoot this
So,
quick,
transition.
it's more important.
No, but the reality is when we develop these videos, what I would guess would come across is this is what we've done already. We want to inform you what we've done, and maybe if you'd like to make some suggestions, that's fine. It's
I
not,
don't think the videos come off that way. The videos come off as this is what it currently is. There's nothing in there that says we've changed things.
well, they don't know that, but in fact, that's exactly what's happened.
But we haven't.
We've
All of
gone
those
through almost the whole
videos-
plan.
Well,
But-
yeah,
But the plan, if you look at the actual plan, it hasn't changed at all.
but, right,
Well,
it is,
yeah,
it
what
is the
we
plan.
edited it. In fact, now that I think about it, what we've done is shrunk the size of the dump.
If you look at the map of, basically the map of future zoning, which is really the key to it all, right? That hasn't changed since
Well,
at all.
the proposed zoning should have changed.
Right, it should have.
And the circulation map should have changed.
Should have. Maybe it has, but I haven't seen
But
it.
those videos were not, at least my script and the ones that I've viewed, that they're not scripts of we've done this, look what we've done. It's here's information for you of what the city currently has, what you are part of.
Okay,
And what
I
it-
get-
and
It
what
doesn't
it
come
could
off
be.
as we've changed
No,
this.
I'm not
here's the
suggesting
news.
that, but in practical sense,
Yeah.
we have gone through and methodically revised those sections, so we have done it,
Essentially.
Well, and I think
essentially.
that's
Whether we
where-
tell them so or not, that's what's happened.
Or we didn't think, yeah.
Where you come in and ask, to say, this is what it was, this is the proposed, this is the draft update. This is what we think. Are we on the mark? Are we missing something here? And here, what are we missing? And then we kind of go through this process and, so all of these are great thoughts and yeah, I agree with you. I don't want it to seem like this is what it is.
No, I'm not suggesting that, but I think it's useful to create a draft first and eliminate a lot of what you'd get if you just opened it up and said, we haven't given it an ounce worth of thought. And the reason why I say that is in the draft, a lot of times we will have addressed changes that the public would want before the public requests them, if we got our antennae up and are listening.
So you're saying
No, it's the same thing you did. Create a draft first.
yes,
Create a draft, but with open-minded
yes.
posture.
Yes, because, okay, so August is, we take that feedback and we go through those comments and we say, we look for patterns, we look for commonalities, we categorize those and we say, this seems feasible, this is not feasible. And then we update that draft document, we make those changes and then we go do kind of like a last 30-day comment period and we go out again and we say, okay, we heard you and here's how we've updated the plan to reflect your input. Then they have we have a final public hearing, they have, we do that, we say, here's how we changed it, 30 days, final public hearing, share with us any additional thoughts, is there anything else we're missing, speak now, forever hold your peace, and then we move into kind of adoption and implementation in September.
Love the sequence. I think the timing is unrealistically compressed.
I know
Just
we're
the May, June,
we're working against, say, on October 1.
Okay, yeah, one of the reasons why there's kind of not really a crunch, but a target is in our general plan, what I'd like to have is an updated general plan by mid-September so that we can actually have achieved the October 1st, because in the general plan, we have to address strategies for the moderate income housing.
Mhm.
And so let's not be amending the general plan 5 times in the next 6 months. Let's get I think we can get this done with all of that, with this strategy. And not really be feeling pressure, because I don't think it's gonna be.
I think as far as input goes, though, the summer months, you're gonna get a lot of people that aren't gonna make it to open houses and be able to give input because of vacations and
The biggest
things like
target in the
that.
summer is gonna be the
So-
Freedom Festival, to be honest.
Right.
And that's why we've gotta be there.
But I would say something like June needs to, May's almost over,
Mhm.
essentially. June's
Yeah, but we
gotta
can get the
be-
videos out.
Right, June's gotta be your kickoff though, and
Yeah.
then your next is the Freedom Festival, and then whatever the other 2 months were is maybe.
It's
condensed
really
into
when
August.
you're chewing it up and
Right. The
process.
most feedback you're gonna get, hands down, is gonna be the Freedom Festival. Then that gives us July and maybe part of August to take that input and implement it,
Set a
and then
public hearing.
spit something out, yeah.
And I think too, to address what you're saying is, I think that at different points of this, so like when we release the videos and we're kind of in this first phase of it, we can have some like general like a survey. And it's, you can do it from your home while you're at work, and your
While you're on
phone,
vacation or
while you're on
whatever.
vacation, and that makes it that much more accessible than having to physically move your body and show up at an open house.
I couldn't agree with you. You'll get much stronger sample as long as they're aware it exists and you kind of almost hold their hand. You know what I'm saying? It's getting them aware of it and helping them understand, we really want you to take 10 minutes and fill this out.
So when is the open house? What would be
It's
the?
up to you guys to set, but you guys to get prepared based on your videos.
Video Freedom Festival, then open house, or are we
I
doing?
think you should do open house before Freedom Festival.
Well, wouldn't the Freedom Festival drive more?
Right, do we need
Tenants
people at
to
the
it?
Freedom Festival,
I
like,
did
well,
that.
I missed the I missed the public hearing, sorry, open house. I missed the open house, now what? That's what I mean.
Either way,
I think you could do it either, and I think you could say, I think you could do the Freedom Fest in July and say, hey, we're gonna also be we're also gonna be having an open house in August on this day. And so I think either way, there's logic.
With the invitation basically to come to it.
Did we decide how we're gonna be more efficient, making sure everybody knows about this?
And I think that's where we kind of use the variety of tactics, outreach tactics, whether it's, the e-blast, Facebook, the newsletter that goes out in Buena Vista.
Website.
I've done mailers for things like this before, and they're really inexpensive, and you just say, you do a postcard and you say,
I would spend money on the postcard over the Buena Vista mailer because
the Buena Vista
I
banner
don't
is,
even know why we do that.
Well, I think you just put it in the newsletter.
Or, yeah,
I like this. I like the yard sign idea.
Yeah,
Oh, and the yard signs.
I think
on
that's
it,
because
yeah.
I think
I
a
think
lot.
your
Oh, that's a good
rec is the
idea.
biggest place.
I
You've
like
got
that
all
idea.
these, we have so many parks that have hundreds of kids a night at that can have yard signs or banners or.
QR codes that they can,
Yeah.
And I think we can,
Use
and those QR codes can be evergreen, so you can, that QR code can link to the survey that we're doing in May and June, but then in August, it links to some interactive maps and tools like that. So I think, yes, like, there is a variety of, the world is our oyster as far as tactics go. And I think it's very smart to diversify those.
Well,
This is where Katie's gonna-
What about the other?
So that's my question, so as we have 10 minutes left, what do you need from us? What do we need to commit to? What's the next step?
I am happy to kind of, I want Janelle to sign off on this too, since she is the rep for the city council, so I'll meet with her. But I'm happy to, develop like the content and the strategies for each portion of it and send those out to you guys and get your feedback and say, hey, I think we need to do banners, or we need to do this, and then as we kind of meet these milestones, updating content for that and sending it to you guys for your input. So I'm happy to do that. I mean, if you guys are good with it.
I think our first thing is to basically actually publish the videos.
Right.
I was told they're out there, but it's like,
But what I wanna know
Where?
is, yeah.
They're on
what's that?
YouTube.
That's my comment, exactly.
So what I had
You
envisioned,
have
Yeah,
to,
they're
Just
out
gotta
there
go
on
to Far
YouTube.
West.
you have to.
Or as
we
YouTube
need to
channels.
link them to our site.
Right,
So
which is
minimum.
not- I tried to go into the city's website.
We don't have them yet.
I know, and I thought.
But we
where are
shouldn't
they?
just put them on
No.
the website without some kickoff, because otherwise it's everything that we do, it's like, we lacklusterly put it out.
No, but it needs to
And
be
then
there
it's
so when you
not-
kick it off, they could immediately click.
Right.
so.
That's what I'm saying.
I've started kind of putting together, content for this, so I think what I've got for this first round of this launch part, I've got website content, so we put a page on the Far West website, content specific to where we're at this phase. We'll do a social media strategy, so I'm thinking the first week will be an introduction from Ken, here's what we want to accomplish, you're gonna see more from us, this is what we're doing. And then I think kind of like weekly, we kind of release one of those videos on
We might want to do
social.
more than one a
Well,
week, because there's at least 9 of them.
Well, and I would almost, most people are gonna choose what they like. So I would rather see us kind of have the pool of them, because someone's gonna say, oh yeah, I care about land, but I could care less about economics, so I'm never gonna watch that. So now you've lost me because that's what you released this week. Where, ooh, I do care about land and I care about active transportation, so at least you've gained that, but I'm not gonna hang on for 9 weeks.
We could do that, and we
Or
could
something
say,
like that.
we could say like, or even Ken could say like, we've got these videos up, go take a look, we'll be highlighting
Yes,
one of
there
them
you go.
each
Yeah.
week, and then that's where we can kind of come in with that educational.
No, they're all available.
Right, as long as they're all available, because people will catch on to certain topics that they care about and they won't watch the rest of them.
Okay, great, and then, we've got the e-newsletter, and I think that we can put out something specific to it's just general plan.
I don't even think I'm getting that anymore. I haven't seen that in a
We've
long time.
sent
Is that monthly?
What?
An e-newsletter? I used to get it. Oh,
I haven't seen an
Oh,
e-newsletter
you
forever.
okay.
We've done at most quarterly. They used to be Buena Vista Bill. We're now doing them in email and online, and
So if I can work on getting that kind of all together and sent out to you guys, for this, and that's just this first push, this is just a launch, and then we'll have more to come when we do, you know, the Freedom Festival and the open house, that will come, so just look at it through those eyes, and then hopefully next week, we can record your video and go and get it off the ground next week and the launch. But
it'll be, take it away, Ted. You'll be the first introduction.
Yeah. I'm good with that.
How about take it away, Ken, do that first, and then,
Or take me away.
no, yeah, whatever, yeah, that too. No, have you post a video of you introducing and saying, okay, from here, this is what we're gonna,
Yes, that's what I meant.
okay. Sorry, I was,
That's okay.
We may have to, you know, we had an ambition of having this done, the general plan done, months and months, years and years ago. A lot of the delay has been, we've had other stuff put in on our agenda that's consumed our work sessions. I don't necessarily envision that ending.
No.
So we gotta be a little bit realistic about our timeline on all of this, unless we wanna meet multiple times each week. Because we started off with work sessions once a month or as needed to, it's a routine part of our agenda now. And we've even gone
Exactly.
to more than 2 meetings a month sometime. If we put in motion an agenda that requires us to meet once a week for multiple hours, we better make sure that's what we're committed to, because based on our past track record, this is an accelerated pace, much accelerated over the way we've operated in the past. So let's be real.
We're also, but in some ways, we're a long ways down the road.
We are.
So
We're done
with that being said, we're kind of, you know, putting the frosting and all that kind of stuff, getting the input, making the changes we need to. We're also dealing with the things that we have to deal with, that we have to have done by October 1st. That just gives us this, okay, let's get it, a goal, never hurts to get it done. And as we've said many times, Lou, over the years, we also know it's a living document and we can address it. And if we miss something, it doesn't mean it's over. It just means
And I think maybe I wasn't clear with
Beginning,
you
yeah.
on like kind of like expectations for what I need from you. I think you guys will still be instrumental in planning what that booth at Freedom Festival looks like and what that content looks like. I want you guys to be driving that, like what's the ask, and then I just want to help you. I want to help put this like kind of outreach framework together and then help it be as successful in getting the word out to the public and getting them engaged with it. And so yeah, I think, and then, during the open house, we'll need, you guys will be instrumental in developing and organizing what that looks like, what each state, that's still in your court, but I just wanna help with.
And we've done a lot of that potential graphics for an open house in the course of creating these presentations. But I want to say, at least as one member of the planning commission, I appreciate your effort because this is something we have neither the expertise nor the time to do.
And that's hard, but we haven't had the time to put, we can't say these together. Well, thank you for coming. That's
This is where Katie's gonna help us shine.
good.
That's why she was elected. One of the reasons she was elected.
So, has the city council determined yet what actions we're taking on moderate income housing?
No, we're gonna talk about that next week. Because
Oh,
we're gonna decide. We're not gonna tell you. This is a team effort, my friend.
We're actually, so you guys are the guys that have to rely on, so.
Right, well, that's why we're having the work session next week. You heard about that?
How many people do we need for a quorum at this board? Or is it
Huh?
3? How many people do you need for a quorum? 3, 4?
You've got more than enough.
How many do you need? What's the answer?
You guys set it up that you need
You have to hold
4. But you accidentally need
Not as
3.
beautiful, is it?
What is the answer? I need to know a number.
You guys codified that it needs to be 4, even though
Okay.
my state code it needs to be 3. You only need 3 yes votes like that. Thank you, Dave.
Am I coming up here?
I think so. Yeah. I think you're on the end.
Nope.
Sorry, Lou.
That's all right. Just knock me around and see if I can.
You missed last week.
Yeah, I was in Orlando. It's an expensive little trip. That was fun.
City council there.
Got that joint work session on my calendar.
Isn't that, was that the city council? That's when they meet, isn't it?
Pardon?
Isn't that when the city council meets, isn't it?
Yeah, it's third week. Guess I just want to make sure I put it down. I think I did. Yep.
Yes. So you're gonna have to read that email.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask her.
Says Geneva is the boss, yeah.
Yep.
Geneva's the
For
boss.
another half an hour.
I'll start with that. That'll sweet talk her. Then it doesn't.
Ted at least gave me a script, so I can refer to that when I screw up.
That's true. She wanted to talk me into this in the first place, just to apply for it. It's her fault.
I wouldn't use the word fault.
Oh, no. I'll just say, that's on you. You do it, yeah.
You guys ready for me to screw up your names again?
It's up to you.
The gavel too.
I can sit,
You're the hardest.
I can sit down there.
Geneva, you have to use the gavel too. Get us going.
That was funny.
There may be a way to do this.
Oh, that is what it is.
Soften it up a little bit.
What the heck happened there? Oh, there's only 2 slices.
These
Okay.
papers, they put food going on.
I'm gonna call this meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. I apologize ahead of time for how many names I'm gonna mess up tonight. But let's start. Brandon, do you want to say the Pledge of Allegiance? And Lyle, do you want to say the prayer?
Sure. Yep.
Okay. Everyone stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, we're thankful for the opportunity we have to meet here as citizens of Farr West. Please help us this night that we might be prudent in our decisions and that we might make those decisions which are in the best interest of the city. We are grateful for the moisture that we've had and ask that more be sent. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, our next agenda item is a report from the city council. However, Janelle is not here, so I will read her Spark notes. All the planning commission saw these, correct? Okay. I'm gonna skip the budget hearing overview, but I'm gonna go into some of the things that are pertinent about us. The city council approved the conditional use permit for the Northwest Cascades for Honey Bucket's staging yard on 2000 West. City council approved reinstatement of the conditional use permit for Special Blend Motor Garage off of 2053 West, 900 North. They approved bills. One of her notes was, the mayor said Pleasant View is still interested in collaborating on the development of 2700 North. With the hearing on a potential rezone tonight, this may be something we want to consider for our next work session or future work sessions, including the transportation corridor. So those are her notes. Does anyone have any questions on those? Okay, next we're moving into opening some public hearings. The first one, we will consider the request.
Take a motion for that.
We don't have a motion for that.
We usually move that we open the public hearing.
Well, no, I'm gonna read what it is and then
Oh,
one of
okay.
you has to
Okay,
motion
okay,
it.
very good.
Sorry, I think. Consider, so we're moving in, or well, one of you guys will motion for the public hearing to consider the request to amend the general plan on properties located at approximately 2800 North or 1900 West. Parcels 19-016-0058, 0059, 0090, 0061, 0091, 0103, 0062, 0094, 0106, allowing the M1 manufacturing zone. we have a
Before we
motion?
do that, I have some questions if we have any representatives from that here.
Well, let's open the public hearing first and then they can come up and talk.
Okay.
We have a motion?
I move that we open said public hearing.
We have a second?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We go into, that was accepted, we go into the public hearing. So just a prelude into this, basically the general plan has this portion called out for, is no one changing this tonight? We can't pull, can you pull up the?
The Bonneville Development rezone, there you go.
So this is currently planned to be C3 zone. Tonight, they're considering an M1. Is there an applicant in the audience that would like to come up and talk about a little bit about your plan? State your name and address, please.
My name is John Tebbs. I'm not from Far West, from Bountiful, 3642 Bountiful Boulevard. Anyway, we've owned this property since 1999. And our intent when we first purchased it was to develop it as a commercial property. We did solicit quite heavily to big and medium box tenants for years. Listed it with one of the top brokers here in the state to help stimulate that. And we really never got any real bites. We got a few bites, but nobody that sank in. And we have decided to switch gears and get something that's got a lot more demand from what we're seeing in our studies, and that is to do a when I say light industrial park, it could be distribution or whatever, but larger box buildings and make a nice attractive park. We're doing this jointly with the Howland Group, who is represented here as well. We're applying jointly. And the road that's noted here is not installed, but it has the verbal support of Pleasant View City. And we have an agreement, us and Howland's, to put the rest of the road in, and understand it has to be improved to city standards and all that. And it'll provide a lot of circulation for traffic to come through. And just the initial announcement of this, we've already had quite a bit of interest. So we're excited about the direction we're going and understand the M1 zone is what's required for that. So
So a couple questions that I had regarding that. I went on the city website and looked at the map. Parcel 58 has a different contact information than the rest of the parcels. Do you guys own parcel 58 as well? It's the northernmost parcel in the group.
Jared, that would be, I mean, the very north piece is actually Pleasant View, the tip piece of the pie.
About the tip.
Yeah, I'm talking about, it says, I think it says Far West something is what's listed on the parcel, and then it has a contact information on Redwood Road in Salt Lake City.
Was 58 part of this though?
Yeah.
That would be-
58 's part of
That would be the Howland piece, and they are jointly applying with us.
Okay.
Yeah, and Jared here represents the Howlands.
Okay. And then I noticed too that there was 90, parcels 90, 100, and 101. It shows a conveyance to you. But on your map, you don't have that listed in here, parcels 100 and 101. On the map, it shows parcel 90, 100, and 101 all combined on your map that you have. Let's see if I can find that.
Yeah,
Right here.
we used to,
This parcel is separate from this parcel, and then there's this one's an L-shaped on the,
yeah, there's three
Yeah,
pieces
map.
there.
so is the intent, is to combine all that into one parcel? Okay,
Yeah, we're wanting to combine all of these. We haven't done it quite yet, because we want to just kind of see how the hearings went and stuff. But, yeah, that is the intent.
I was just wondering, just for the intent of the motion to get this all rezoned, where that hasn't been combined yet, do we want to add those other two parcels into the list of parcels that you were applying to have rezoned?
Well, roughly let's see here. When move the mouse to the right there. One more. That there is, that's the Howlands piece, and then we're everything else to the left.
Yep.
And that's all in Far West, and I believe everything to the right, to the tip of the triangle there is Pleasant View. And we have met with Pleasant View. They're very excited about this because it opens up all that land back there for them too.
Yeah, well, I actually work right over here where that road lets out onto Parkland Boulevard, so
Oh, good. Who do you work for?
JD Machine.
Oh, okay.
But, so I like the concept. Another question I had too is, and it's just some of my neighbors brought this up, is an M1 manufacturing zone also allows sexually oriented businesses? I know that's probably not your intent, but just want to get that
Really?
clarified. Yes.
Who wrote the zone code?
We're mandated to have it in our zone.
Is
No,
it
we
considered a mixed
did
use?
not want to. We had no choice.
Yeah.
It had to be included in one of the zones in the city. We felt that the most expendable zone was M1. We certainly didn't want to put it in a residential zone or a
Yeah.
commercial zone, so.
Yeah, Jared, do you have any thoughts on that?
He's going for a whole new business
Yeah.
plan now.
Yeah, his business plan changing.
Okay.
We'd be happy to exclude that in any type of development agreement if you would so desire. I mean, that was absolutely.
Okay, because I just wanted to get what your intention was. And I knew that it was just for manufacturing, warehousing buildings and stuff too. But just so you guys know, if anybody approaches you regarding a sexually oriented business that where you guys are owning this development, that you can say no as well.
We have no intent on doing that. Yeah, for sure.
Are
Okay.
there any other questions from?
Yeah, you said you've had several parties express interest. Could you describe the nature of those businesses?
We have, we are lined up to have a listing with a guy named Tom Freeman, who's one of the bigger development brokers. We've had a pharmaceutical group, distribution. They drop the pieces off, they break them down into smaller boxes, move them back out. I think there's been about 3. I believe all 3 were more distribution.
They're distribution warehousing, not retail. Is that correct?
Retail, yeah.
Okay.
And you don't have a site plan at all? You just are going by who may come?
We do have a site plan. We're currently looking at one big building, but I'm leaving that a little bit loose while the agent works on it. And we see what we're coming up with, but it does appear to be larger tenants. And the Howlands, I believe, are looking at some smaller buildings. When I say smaller, under 150,000 feet, something like that.
So they'll keep their own parcel and do their own thing. You'll combine your pieces.
Yeah, we used to own a lot of this half and half,
Okay.
and we just shuffled it, so they owe this and we own that. We just recently have done that.
Any other questions?
I have a question. So if this is distribution, which way are you guys thinking of using, what roads?
So this road comes back behind Maverick right here and out
Get
to
it out.
2700 North.
So
Or
2700
you can come
north.
over here to Parkland Boulevard, and then that now, if they come down here, Rulin White now comes through to Parkland Boulevard, and they could go out Rulin White if they needed to as well, so.
We're just making sure there's enough flow of traffic that.
I think it'll circulate pretty easy. I don't know if UDOT is doing anything out on 2700 North in terms of turning left in, but it doesn't matter. The big trucks are gonna want to go down and circle all the way through.
Is that road in front of you? It's not improved, doesn't have curb and gutter, does it?
You see the little jog there?
Huh?
To the left of the mouse, that is improved, but I don't think it's up to date in terms of width and stuff and utilities. And there's no curb and gutter.
Any other questions from the planning commission? You can have a seat. Is there anyone in the public that would like to comment? Yeah, go for it.
I'll say a quick.
Say your name and address, please.
Yes, Jared Boyer, and I'm here representing the Howland Group, who is jointly submitting this application for a rezone.
So this is the portion you guys have right here, right?
Correct, yes. My address is 1201 East Wilmington Avenue in Salt Lake City, Utah. So in 2020, we all know the pandemic shut down the entire nation. And one of the things that we learned is looking at Amazon's business model. You know, they have a projection of annual growth. And what we learned is within about 6 months, they had received 10 years of projected annual growth within that 6-month period of time. And the reason why is because when we were forced to stay at home, more and more people purchase things online. And especially those people that were not in the habit of purchasing things online, now we're required to. And so what we've learned is that in this age of internet, more and more brick and mortar stores are shutting down. And for every 1 square foot of brick and mortar store that shuts down, 3 square feet of industrial space or distribution or manufacturing space opens up to replace the brick and mortar stores in order to transfer the same goods from, you know, where they originate to the end user, to the consumer. And so when we made the application to rezone this to an M1 use, our idea is not to have big, heavy manufacturing type uses out here. What we really are catering towards is, you know, there will be some distribution, but what we're finding is a lot of the business models today focus around e-commerce, focus around internet. And some of the smaller warehouses and medium-sized warehouses that we've are proposing for this area would greatly support the shifting business model from brick and mortar retail stores to your more e-commerce stores, where your small and medium-sized business owners are looking for not brick and mortar space anymore. They're looking for industrial space to house an office and a space for their goods. I have a coworker whose wife owns a clothing business, and they rent 4,000 square feet of industrial space because they don't need a storefront. They don't have people walk in and out. All they do is have people purchase online. And so we're seeing the shift from, again, more of a retail space to kind of this industrial quasi-flex office, online e-commerce business space. And so that's one of the reasons why the demand has increased and why originally they had been interested in commerce space or commercial space for this area, but it just hasn't been, they haven't had any bites, as John said. So anyway, so I just wanted to get up and explain a little bit our reasoning and why we think that this is a great location for this type of use. I specialize in industrial real estate, and the type of buildings that we propose are high-end, very nice looking, tilt concrete type warehouses, and they look very good. You know, they're not metal, they're not ugly, they're well taken care of, well groomed. But anyway, I appreciate your consideration in this zone change application. Thank you.
Thank you. Say your name and address.
My name is Ed Raymer. I live at 1931 North, 2000 West in Far West, Utah. So what I've heard discussed so far for this particular property is really not any manufacturing at all. And so maybe I'm a bit confused. Why would we let them have an M1 zone where they could, if they chose to, put in heavy-duty manufacturing when that's not their intent? Why aren't we looking at some other lesser zoning to allow for the distribution process that they're talking about?
Warehousing requires the M1.
Thank
That's
you.
the simple
But
answer.
I figured there was one. That's why I asked. Thank you.
Anyone else?
And this first part of the public hearing, this was just for the general plan, right?
Yeah, just to
update the
amend the
general
general plan.
Okay, and the second
have
part is
another
kind
one.
of the same discussion, but for the rezone, right?
Yep.
Okay,
Last call. Okay, is there a motion to close the public hearing and move, well, sorry, we'll move on to the next one. Close this one and move on to the next one.
I move that we close the public hearing as described.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, is everyone in favor, say aye.
aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to the next public hearing, which is to consider the request of a rezone of the Bonneville Development Group properties located at approximately 2800 North, 1900 West, including the same tax IDs as before, from an A1 zone to an M1 manufacturing zone. Does someone want a motion?
Yeah, I'll
to-
motion that we consider the request of rezone of the Bonneville Development
No.
Group.
Oh, to go
Yeah.
into the public hearing.
Oh, yeah, so I motion that we go into public hearing on this request for a rezone of the Bonneville Development Group properties located at the said parcels from A1 to M1.
Motion by Darren, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Lyle. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're in this motion, or in this public hearing now. Do you guys have anything different you want to say about this one at all? Okay, does anyone in the public want to say anything? Okay. You can,
You can
you are
if you
a
want to.
citizen. Actually, in my notes, Ted said you would,
Well,
so. You're welcome to.
Ken Pippin, Far West City resident, happy to be mayor as well. My comment on actually rezoning this to M1. The M1, we did talk about a little bit of the general plan. The general plan we've been working on for a good long time, and I understand that the folks that have been, trying to, move their property and all that. The vision of Far West has had this to be commercial, because we need the retail in order for a tax base, in order to be able to repair roads and all of the things we need to do, because we do not get enough revenue from property taxes alone. I'm sure there may be concerns about, and I know I have concerns about, additional truck traffic in the area. Because we're basically gonna, if this happens, we'll have bookends of Associated on one side and this on the other side. It's all gonna circle around and come right up 2,700. And I'm absolutely sure that the residents will be thrilled about that. So we won't get any tax revenue out of it. We're gonna get a lot more traffic out of it, and I worry about that. The cooperation with Pleasant View, I don't know how that fell so hard as it did, because we're actually trying to fire that back up. And we're actually speaking with also Weber County on some, they want to help market some of these areas. So I hope, and my input is that we give some of these other things an opportunity to find their way through before we just go ahead and shut the door on what could be a very important part of our future. And that's what I have to say about that. Thank you.
Anyone else? You're welcome back up.
We're primarily contractors, commercial contractors, but we do a fair amount of developing retail, industrial, multifamily, medical office. If we could have this go retail, we would make a lot more money than a big warehouse. I've tried for 23 years. I don't know what to do. Stuart Thane's the biggest retail broker in the state. He represents Lowe's, Home Depot, Target. We have not had any success. And anyway, we want to do a great job, but I'm getting old. I'd like to do something that would be complimentary to the community. I do appreciate the tax base too. I completely understand, but we'd like to move forward with something. I guess that's where we're going. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, does someone want a motion to close the public hearing and proceed with the regular meeting?
I motion that we close the public, what is it?
Hearing?
Hearing and proceed with the meeting.
Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Darren. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, moving on to the recommendation to the city council of approval or denial of the request to amend the general plan of the properties located at approximately 2,800 north, 1,900 west, parcels below, allowing the M1 manufacturing zone. Okay, commission, further discussion on this at all?
Yeah, I have quite a few things to discuss, actually. The one is just, it's been our practice in the past when we have modified the general plan to engage in substantial discussion in work sessions as a planning commission, because this is our effort to propose what we think would be in the best interest of the citizens in the city of Far West. We have not gone through that exercise. And we've gone through that exercise and invested considerable amount of time in issues which I would regard as much less substantial than this one. So my first comment is I think this is premature for us to make this decision without engaging in a in-depth discussion of the implications of this decision. That's not to be interpreted as I don't like the idea. It's let's set that back and take a deep breath and think about other options. A couple of other concerns. Your intent sounds good, but once we rezone this to M1, we are legally bound to any practice allowed in that zone. And we've alluded to sexually oriented businesses, but there's a lot of other manufacturing and other options, which if you disappeared and somebody else took over that property, or you had a change of mind, we would be obligated to honor anything that's an allowed use in M1. I think you can understand my concern. Your storyline sounds comfortable, reasonably comfortable, but the other options don't. Another thing I would just like to comment on is I'm wondering if we were to engage in a discussion, we might bring in the mixed use zone, which allows higher density residential mixed with commercial. that's, in my view, a potential use for this. And we have wrestled with the idea that we're gonna have to face the issue of having higher density someplace in Far West. If I were to pick possible locations, that might be one, and you've got a train station right now that's closed, but it won't be indefinitely, that's in relatively close proximity to that. It's my understanding that Pleasant View is resurrecting the trailer court and will have higher density there. So I'm not saying I'm endorsing that, but before I ever made a choice, I would certainly want to consider mixed use as a zoning option in addition to M1. I think we have not thoroughly, I understand from a marketing point of view, your argument and the urgency given you've tried to go commercial. I'm not convinced that we as the Planning Commission have invested enough time in considering what choice would be in the best interest of the citizens of Far West. And I would echo what the mayor said about my concern about a revenue base for the city, which is going to become an increasing concern, I think, in the future. And just a last comment, I would hate to make a decision tonight when we have 3 members of the Planning Commission not even present. So I can make a motion or wait for other people to make comments, but I would be moving in the direction of tabling it until we've had further discussion.
Well, I have a couple comments. I agree with the fact we are, unfortunately for you, missing about half of our planning commission tonight. But I see the other side, and this parcel is tucked in a place of the city that I think even on 20 or 2000 West or whatever that turns into, this is a better location for stuff like manufacturing because it's not the root of our city. It's covered by a sound wall. No one residentially is living here. I would rather see our manufacturing here than I would ever see on 2000 West.
I appreciate that argument, but the question I've raised is, would you rather see manufacturing or something else? If you were to put manufacturing somewhere else in Far West outside of where it is currently zoned, I would concur with your argument completely. My stance is this the best choice?
And I'm not saying that it's maybe the best choice, but in reality, commercial is never going to be a thing here, not retail commercial. And our stance has always been everything north of 2700 can be M1. That's where we've kept kind of that M1 zone, and this technically still slides into that. And I know it's against everyone, I know, but if I'm going to see manufacturing, if I'm going to see tilt up buildings, not saying that's what we would allow, but if I'm going to see those big buildings, this is the greatest place in our city to see it.
How would you feel about mixed use in that area?
I don't want residents living there, but that's my personal.
Based on what line of reasoning?
I don't know what Pleasant View is going to do back there, but I wouldn't want to see apartments or townhomes here because it's not, I don't think it's the safest place we want our citizens living, but that's just my personal opinion.
So working in the Pleasant View Industrial Park over there, this is a natural extension of that. I think Pleasant View's intention is to do manufacturing all through that area. So.
And that's kind of the road they've taken. The one that we're doing off 2700 North with the Jimmy John's. And here's a great example, that Jimmy John's building and the Dutch Bros that are going right there. We cannot fill up that Jimmy John's retail space. And that's the most prime retail space off 2700 North that's there. So you take this where it has no visibility. It has to be a destination. That's tough.
Well, your vision's different than mine.
No, I know, and I understand where you're coming from. I take that into account, but can you picture citizens living here? Behind all this being industrial right now?
On the south side, I could envision a higher density.
This would be like the east side, the Pleasant View.
Pleasant View, yeah.
Like where Parkland and Rule and
Okay.
White come in.
Okay, but what is Pleasant View currently doing with that trailer court? They're rebuilding it.
Portion of it.
At one time,
they're
that was
doing something
that was
on it.
off the map, it was gone. They are now reconsidering higher density housing on their side. So,
But growing to be surrounded by industrial. You can come up, I think.
Just as I heard you were talking about what's happening with the trailer court. If you get on KSL, you go to their homes, their homes have for sale. They have quite a bit of listings there for mobile homes. The build date will be 2023. So they're gonna put in more mobile homes there. But at the same time, they're kicking everybody else out. That's an interesting.
Your name and your address.
Robert Alexander, 3358 North Higley Road. But yeah, that's what's happening with that particular trailer park. So it's gonna be a trailer park. It'll be new homes, new trailer homes, but even the nicer homes that are back there, which there's a few of them, are gonna be kicked out by September. So I just,
Nicer trailer homes or there's nicer?
new trailer
So
homes.
they're requiring newer, up to date to code,
Okay.
double wide in there. And I don't think the whole thing's gonna be redeveloped. I think the back portion of Pleasant View is gonna develop into manufacturing.
Well, and that's the thing, well, and you can sit down if you want, but that's the thing. Remember when we went over, was it form-based code a couple years ago? Pleasant View's whole vision for that zone, or that, whatever the pod they called it, was this walkable community and retail and apartments and all that kind of stuff. And now it literally is all industrial, maybe except for this mobile home park. But it is all industrial, like surrounding all of it, all the way up to Smith and Edwards on 89. So I have a hard time believing people, I mean, they'll rent, I'm sure people would live there. But I have a hard time believing that's gonna be a place we have a mixed use. Because no one, your frontage, your retail frontage is, no one is coming to this. It's not it's a destination. Someone's coming to it for a reason. They're not passerbys. I know you're nice to see differently. I
Yeah,
would
we're
prefer, of all the places in the city, that this is, you can't see it from the freeway. We can't see it from the other side. It's blocked by a canal. This is, to me, it's the ideal place to have something of flex space or industrial.
And if
That's just my
a
opinion.
developer, I can understand your line of reasoning. I'm just not completely convinced it's still the best choice for the citizens of Far West. And we'll just have to differ.
No, yeah, and I appreciate that. Well, seeing that, I would say that maybe we need to put this on the next work session agenda and have a discussion about it, and maybe the developers would like to attend that work session with maybe some exhibits of buildings and things like that, so they can, or we all can get a visual. But
You made a motion.
who made a motion?
Who did?
No, I made a comment. I will,
You said to table.
I said I could make a motion. Do you want me to
Yeah.
formally do it?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, I move that we table the recommendation to the city council for the request for amending the general plan on the proposed properties as stated.
We have a motion by Lou. Do we have a second?
I second.
Do we have any further discussion? Everyone in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to the next agenda item, because that one did not pass. We don't need to move into that one.
You can table that.
Or table it, I guess, if there's a recommendation. Okay, so sorry, someone needs to table it, yes.
Okay, I recommend that we table the recommendation to the city council for the request for a rezone of the said property.
We have a motion.
I second.
We have a second by Lyle. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Can I just make a comment? As a courtesy, I think we ought to put this definitely on our next planning commission agenda to expedite the process as quickly as
And
possible.
I have that on my notes, so I will email Ted and make sure you guys are on the next one, which will be May 26th, probably. But one of us will email you to confirm that as well, or someone from the
And
city
this
will.
is just so we can have the whole planning commission together before we amend the general plan. So
You guys come prepared. Okay, moving on to the next agenda item, to set a public hearing for May 26th to consider the request of a conditional use permit for Matt Montano, sorry if I screwed that up, located at 3770 and 3762 North Higley Road. Do we have the applicant here?
So this one, when I looked through it, there was no detail on how big a warehouse he wants to build,
There was
not a
nothing.
site plan, not anything. So, and where he's not here,
I think we ought to have some notion of what the public meeting is about, public hearing is about before we schedule it.
I can agree with that. Does someone want to make
So
a
I would
motion?
motion that we table that public hearing for May 26th to consider, oh, no, never mind. I'm on the wrong one.
F.
So, yeah, so to table the public hearing for May 26th to consider request of a conditional use permit for Matt Montano located 3770 and 3762 North Higley Road.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Lyle. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Moving on. G, set a public hearing for May 26th to consider the changes to the landscape ordinance to incorporate water-wise requirements. Any discussion amongst the council?
I move that we set a public hearing for May 26, 2022 to consider changes to the landscape ordinances to incorporate water-wise requirements.
We have a motion by Lyle. Do we have a second?
Second.
We probably should put in that motion with the adjustments made tonight, or does that not matter?
I don't know that that matters because
It's just a
no,
public
it's
hearing.
never been released, and no draft has been released, nobody's seen it.
Okay,
So,
that's fine. Okay, did someone second that? Brandon seconds. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Moving on. Consent items. Approval of the minutes dated April 28th of 2022.
I motion we approve the minutes dated April 28th, 2022.
second.
Motion by Brandon, second by Darren. I'm getting better with the names, guys. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, moving on. Report on assignments. You want to start with Brandon?
Nothing to report.
Darren?
Just other than working on the water-wise ordinance, I'll update what we talked about today and get that out to everybody, hopefully this weekend, so you guys can have a chance to look at it.
Perfect. Lou?
Nothing.
Lyle?
I always have something. I'll be quick. We had a park meeting yesterday, and next Wednesday, the group from Know Your Script will be out. Next Wednesday, they'll be out to the Smith Family Park to install displays for the prescription like we discussed 2 weeks ago. They're putting up a crooked basketball hoop and crooked picnic tables and benches and things. Know Your Script is so trying to ask the doctor more questions about to avoid opioid abuse and prescription abuse. And they're gonna have like a locked porta potty, and it'll say, there'll be a sign on it that says, well, there are other options. And they'll have a QR code and everything, so they're gonna be out there installing a few things. I suggest we put the porta potty out in the middle of the grass field. It'll pique people's interest enough to go out there, but I don't know what'll happen with that. Anyway, so they're being out there at 8 o'clock next Wednesday. And also, what's her name? Sorry.
Katie?
No, the other one. Janelle, sorry.
Oh,
Thanks,
the other
Kenzie.
one.
Sorry.
That's okay.
They both go to the meetings. Janelle updated us on the Adopt a Park, and that is in Ryan's hands now for review from the attorney. And we're looking at just adopting, they're gonna put it out for application to adopt all the parks within the city. And the pump track, as you can see, dirt is starting to be poured there. The city always gets fill dirt and they dump it out on that property across the street from Walquist. And so when the guys have time, they just go grab a couple of loads, and you can see they're just trying to build it up, or it's coming along slowly, but it's one of those that they'll do when they have an extra hour or two to run dirt. So it's moving forward. And last but not least, the fishing club, the last day is on Saturday, and you guys are invited to come at between 9 and 10:30 and have a hot dog.
It's a little early for a hot dog.
And, well, one of the volunteers, he works for USA Foods, and his company graciously donated 90 plus hot dogs and buns, and so we bought enough chips to accommodate that. And I sent an email out today with the parents, because fishing's all about family and getting together. And so I sent an email out today and asking the families to invite just the current people living in their home to come out and enjoy fishing with the kids and stuff. And so we'll see how that goes. But we always take my smoker down there, and it started out just for the fun of it, the first class, and then it's just blossomed from there. So last class, and then also I think that's it. Yeah, sorry, that is it.
No, that's good. Thank you. I have nothing to report. Other than the next one on the agenda, just saying that on May 19th, so next Thursday at 6 PM, there's a joint work session with Planning Commission and City Council to consider the impact of HB 462. So as many of you can attend, that would be wonderful. Are there any public comments? Come on up.
I think I'll give you a different address, see if you notice. Ed Raymer, still at the same address. So I'm not sure where to find the information. They're building construction right next to me. It's been extremely dusty the last few days, especially with the wind. I don't have any idea where I go to find ordinances and would wonder if you guys could point me in the right direction, or maybe, I don't know how to find that information from the city. Can I call the city office and get that
I
details?
would, and she might know a better answer, but I would call the city because they can, either the inspector or Nate or someone can go out and
We'll check it.
request they water it down.
Other than that, you guys do a great job. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
And they are required to do dust control, so don't feel bad about
No, I
mandating them
don't.
too. Okay. Thank you. Okay, anyone else in the public? If not, we have a last agenda item. If someone wants to make a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Lou, ooh,
Wow,
dang it, I
wow.
shouldn't have said the names. And a second by Darren. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? The meeting is adjourned. Thank you, guys.
You gotta bang your gavel.
Apparently so.
What?
I said,
You guys can't sit next to, you both have L names.
no, that's the reason.
Oh.
You group old people together.
Probably.
sat on the end, I'd feel alone.
What do you mean? Just because Lou and Lyle are both old? Yeah, probably. I couldn't remember his name to
I know
start.
I know they're old and I know their name starts with L.
Right. Lou, Lyle, Lou, Lyle.
sat on the end, I'd feel alone, so I moved one step.
I wouldn't, it's your two names I cannot get straight.